I'm happy to be here today with Eugene Silberstein. He probably doesn't need an introduction, but I'm happy to introduce you to him. He is our author of Print Reading for HVACR, and I'm thrilled to be with you today, Eugene. Thought we could start out and have you tell us a little bit about your background in HVAC.
Thanks, Cathy. Great to be with you. Yep, as Cathy mentioned, my name is Eugene Silberstein, and I have been involved in the HVAC industry for, hate to admit it, but over 40 years now. Started out as a helper, became a technician, system designer, project manager. I was fortunate enough to have owned 3 HVAC service companies. I worked as a system balancer, tin knocker, sheet metal layout guy. I would perform heat gains and heat loss calculations, pretty much anything involved in the day-to-day operations of a company, as well as all of the tasks that our workers were required to do. I was pretty much involved in all of it. And I have over 25 years in front of the classroom. So I started in this industry at age 14, and I've been in the classroom for over 25 years as a teacher, as a program chairman, as an executive director, and I was fortunate enough to be given the opportunity to teach at the high school level, post-secondary, and at proprietary institutions. And at a community college in New York, I was given the opportunity to write, direct, and teach my own program. So I got to create the program, direct it, and teach it. And I've been writing for over 20 years. As you mentioned, I have a number of books out on HVAC, and I'm now the director of technical education and standards at the ESCO Institute, and I get to work with over 1,000 schools across the country that are looking to either start an HVAC program or improve the quality of their existing program. So it's been 40 awesome years in this industry.
So Eugene, you talked about writing a number of HVAC books and sharing your knowledge, and we thank you for that. For Goodheart-Willcox, you wrote Print Reading for HVAC. Can you tell us why you decided to take on that endeavor to write that book?
Yeah, okay. That's funny that you asked that. That's a really good question, and people ask me that question. And if you think back about old adages, they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so you look at a painting, you look at a drawing, and you're explaining it. And when you think about what a writer does, is writers paint pictures with words. So our job as authors and writers is to paint pictures and allow our students and readers to visualize what it is we're saying. So if you take those two concepts, that a picture is worth 1,000 words, and writers paint pictures with words, in the Print Reading for HVAC book, it actually gave me the opportunity to paint pictures with pictures, because the book is all about pictures and drawings and sketches and diagrams, and me as an author, I got the opportunity to describe those pictures, drawings, and plans. And the pictures and diagrams and drawings that we're looking at makes up a set of job plans for a project. And in essence, these drawings are written in a unique language. And so imagine trying to tell somebody in words how a system needs to be installed, where it goes, how it's going to be set, what materials are going to be used, what the finished installation is going to look like. If I convey that to somebody in words, there might be barriers. Somebody might not understand the language I'm using. Somebody might not understand my accent. Somebody might not speak English at all. So we have there's a disconnect or potential disconnect from how I'm portraying something or how I perceive it, that I'm conveying it, and how somebody is actually grasping the concept. So blueprints are really awesome because they're not subject to language, to different interpretations or definition of words. So think of it like music, Cathy. If I am composing a piece of music and I write that music, if somebody takes that music and they play the instrument or they play that music exactly as I wrote it, it's going to come across as the author or composer intended. So blueprints are really a graphic representation of what a designer or architect or project owner envisions. So now they're trying to convey that set of thoughts, that thought on paper. So this book really gave me the opportunity to paint pictures with pictures and use words to describe it. So it's something that's been bouncing around inside my head for quite some time. And I'm really, really excited that I was given the opportunity to do this. And so far the word on the street is people like it, and I'm glad they do.
All right, Eugene, can you tell us a little bit about how your book is organized?
Absolutely. The book is organized in a step-by-step manner. And when I was envisioning this project, I envisioned watering a dry plant. All right, and the reason I'm saying that is, out in California, I have a lot of dry plants, and if you try and water a dry plant too much, too quickly, too fast, the water runs off and nothing seeps in. And the trick to watering a dry plant is put a couple drops of water, give it time to seep in, and then once the water absorbs into the soil, you can put a little bit more water, give it time to seep in. So when you water a dry plant, you have to do so slowly and wait. A little bit of water, give it time, a little bit of water, give it time. And then once the soil gets moist, you can start to water the plant a little bit more aggressively. And believe it or not, that's the picture I painted when I was organizing and laying out this book. Because earlier in our discussion, I mentioned that we have students that have problems grasping the 2D to 3D transition. And then we also have a lot of students who are afraid of math. And the book starts out with an intro to prints and basically says, okay, well, this is why these are important. This is why you need to know this. Because if you can convince, I won't say convince, but if you can educate your students on what they're doing or what they're going to do is important, they're more likely to do it. And it's kind of growing up, mommy, why can't I do that? Well, because I said so. Teacher, why do we have to learn this? Because I said so. There's going to be pushback. You're really going to, not get 100% buy-in from your teachers. So here are prints right at the beginning. Here are blueprints. This is what they are. This is why they're important. This is why you need to know them. And then right after that, we address the 800-pound gorilla in the room, math. And now we're saying, okay, well, yeah, to learn this, you kind of need to know this. To grow big and strong, you have to eat your broccoli. And oh man, broccoli. And we throw the math right out there. And the math in this book is organized in a way that doesn't make it scary. And this is how I would teach math to my students who had issues or concerns or were challenged by the math. And it basically peels back the layers of math so we're not afraid of it. And it provides some insight that I like to provide my students with on basic operations and just how to manipulate numbers. And again, okay, well, that's the math. Okay, I get it. But what's in it for me? And then it goes into the applications of math. All right, what can we do with math? Some realistic applications of mathematical processes and how these mathematical processes are used as tools to solve problems. And then we move into the instruments, to the rulers and the scales, and now the students are getting familiar and comfortable with using the instrumentation. And this is something they could practice either in classroom, or if they're remote learning, they can do it at home. And then we start breaking apart a blueprint, all right, or a plan, without throwing it out at them at once. Or if you build it slowly, then they'll be able to grasp it piece by piece. So we get into ductwork and duct symbols, and then boom, pull a little bit away from the prints and go into estimating duct projects. So now they've mastered. So along each of the steps of the way, the student can grab a small chunk of content, master it, watering that plant, right, slowly, and before they realize it, they're up to their neck in the pool, and before they realize they were afraid of the water. And then after each chapter, we have 3 different types of questions. We have multiple choice type questions where they can just simply, demonstrate their understanding or knowledge of a topic. Then they can apply concepts and analyze and build on it. And then finally, we have critical thinking questions that can't be answered in the book. It's asking you to apply the concepts in the chapters to solve other problems or evaluate other concepts and ideas. And one of the tools, again, from piping drawings, it looks at piping. It even looks at electrical wiring diagrams. So what is an electrical wiring diagram? An electrical wiring diagram is basically a plan for an electrical circuit. So even if you're teaching electricity, in this book, there are electrical wiring diagrams. Again, following a story. These are the plans that the circuit designer had, that if you execute this circuit correctly, this is what is going to happen. And one of the things that I really, really love about this book, other than the fact that so much of me went into it from my mindset, and actually I'm really glad that I got the opportunity to share these ideas, because a book is a book, but I think giving instructors a little insight into what's going on up here in this guy's brain when he was creating it is actually neat. But one of the things that I really like is the book has large prints, and these are sets of actually large prints that students can look at and work at, again, either in class or at home. And these prints, they actually open up on a table. They could use the rulers and the scales that we've talked about in earlier chapters, and they can learn to extract information from the prints. And again, it's all about providing our students with the tools to solve problems and to perform tasks. So I think the organization of the book really does flow with the way we learn. And again, it's all about watering that dry plant.
How would you recommend instructors use your book in their HVAC curriculum, whether it's a specific course or whether part of a more comprehensive curriculum? How can someone integrate your content to help students learn these skills?
Thanks. Yeah, you know what, Cathy? There's no one answer to that, because not all HVAC training programs have standalone print reading courses. But whether or not a program has a specific print reading course, they still need to teach the content in some way, shape, or form. We need the graduates of our training program to be able to read prints. Whether they're going to be an installer, they need to be able to install that system according to the specifications that are presented. And again, this goes back to what we were saying earlier. We really need to make certain that the installers know what it is that the supervisor is intending for them to do. And a print really, really eliminates a lot of that confusion. And prints also provide written documentation and saying, listen, this is what needs to be done and how. And you can actually compare what was done to what the intent of the project was. So print reading strategies can be incorporated into many aspects of instruction. For example, we teach soldering and brazing. We teach students how to bend tubing and flare tubing and swedge tubing. We teach all these operations. We teach students how to lay out ductwork and how to bend ductwork, and we teach students how to follow wiring diagrams. So all of these skills are really offshoots of print reading. Because if I want my student to create a certain project out of bent copper tubing, I'm going to present my student with a drawing and say, this is what I want you to create. So students need to know how to work with different measurement scales and how to use a ruler effectively and how to take a two-dimensional drawing and create a three-dimensional project from it. So there are a lot of skills, whether it's from system balancing or sheet metal. Students need to be able to take a drawing and say, okay, well, this is the supply register I need to look at. And here it is on the print, and now I have to find it in real life. So as I mentioned, some programs have standalone print reading courses, and that's great. Some don't. But the skills that are taught as part of a print reading course, whether or not you have one, need to be taught, and it needs to be distributed and disseminated no matter what you're teaching.
All right, Eugene, can you tell us a little bit about the challenges that students and instructors might face when it comes to print reading for HVAC, and maybe some solutions that you can provide for us?
Sure thing. So, one of the challenges that teachers face, whether it's print reading or underwater basket weaving or underwater welding, whatever it is we're teaching, one of the challenges that teachers face is that all of their students are starting from different points, and all of their students have different skill sets. And some of our students are more visual learners than others, and some have better spatial skills than others. We see the world in 3 dimensions. We visualize the world in 3 dimensions. But one of the challenges that we face is blueprints are presented as 2-dimensional drawings. So probably the biggest challenge in my mind that teachers face when they're teaching print reading to their students is that they really need to bridge the gap between a 2-dimensional drawing and a 3-dimensional project. And when you're looking at something 2-dimensionally, well, how are you looking at it? Are you looking at it from the top, from the side? And throughout this book, there are a lot of exercises that encourage and build that skill set of basically converting a 2-dimensional object to a 3-dimensional object. When teaching print reading is awesome because students are confused, and then all of a sudden they see the light. And then once they get it, they get it. A lot of our students don't like math. And when we're teaching print reading, unfortunately, not all of it is spatial, but it's about numerical manipulation and reading scales, interpreting measurements, converting measurements. And that's probably one of the collective reasons why students push back on print reading, because it's this bridge from 2-dimensional to 3-dimensional, but it also involves math. And to help tackle that and help address that problem, we've incorporated a whole chapter on, well, 2 chapters, one on math and one on math applications. And I incorporated a really neat section in that math chapter, and it talks about the myths of math. And it wasn't planned out that way, but these were little things that I always told my students. And people think, oh, well, it's math, so you always have to follow all the rules, and you have to follow this, you have to follow this, and well, you don't really have to. There's more than one path to a solution. I might tackle a problem this way, you might tackle a problem this way, but at the end of the day, we're going to get to the same result. So how you got there is irrelevant as long as you got to the right place. And I think our students are concerned and they get caught up with following the right procedures with a problem as opposed to determining what works well up here for them. And that's actually really, really wild. And on that note, a lot of people think, oh, well, you have to do a lot of memorization in math. And a lot of calculations and a lot of problem solving techniques aren't result of memorization, especially in the HVAC industry. In the HVAC industry, if you memorize, you're going to forget, and there are no two air conditioning systems that are the same. So memorization doesn't really help too much. And one of the other really neat things is I keep telling my students that you don't have to be a genius to know math. Students think, oh, well, math is only for really, really smart people. And math is a tool, just like a screwdriver, just like a wrench. Math is a tool. Math is a tool we use to solve a problem. And what I always tell my students is, I'm not teaching you to do X, Y, Z. I'm teaching you to be a creative problem solver. And what a creative problem solver does is they solve problems creatively. And math is just a tool that helps you do that. So the challenge is, I just want to recap because this was the whole basis for writing this book. It's really tackling that and bridging that two-dimensional to three-dimensional challenge and allowing our students to realize that they don't need to be afraid of math. And I think this book helps. The feedback I'm getting from teachers is really, really good because it's helping them do just that. And those are two big stumbling blocks.
So you and I talked before about how important HVAC is in the world, and it's really come to light as we've learned about HVAC technicians being essential for everyday life. Can you give us a little bit of the wisdom you've learned along the way and some applications that other instructors and students might not think of when they think of the importance of HVAC?
How much time do you have for this question? This is great because in our industry, if we do what we do correctly, people don't know we exist. Auto mechanics are out there and they're working on cars. Our cars are rolling down the streets. If an air conditioning company, an air conditioning technician, if they do their jobs correctly, nobody knows we're there. Our equipment is hidden outside behind the house. It's in our basements, it's in closets, it's up in attics. And all people see are registers on the ceilings and walls and an occasional thermostat mounted on the wall. And it's so funny. I ask people, oh, well, show me your air conditioning system. And they take me over to the thermostat and say, there it is. So our industry, for the most part, is hidden. And a lot of people rely on our industry every day, and yet they don't realize it. For example, when the average person walks into a grocery store, they see food on shelves. They see frozen food. They see fresh produce from all around the world. When an air conditioning and refrigeration guy walks into a supermarket, they're looking at all the equipment. They're looking at how all of those food products from around the world got to that store. If you're in the Midwest and you're eating Alaskan king crab, well, how did it get to you? How did it get there? So when you walk into the supermarket, the air conditioning guys, they're looking at all the refrigeration equipment. They're looking at the products going, wow, this is from Europe. How did it get here? All the transportation equipment that's required to move move product from point A to point B. When you go into the hospital, people see doctors and nurses. What does an air conditioning guy see? You know, we see the negative pressure rooms that you hear so much about now with COVID. We're thinking about the ventilation systems that reduce contamination in operating rooms. There's a whole science, there's a whole field of study just on operating room air conditioning systems. When somebody is being operated on and their chest cavity is open, how do you prevent contaminants from getting into their body? Well, that's the air conditioning guy. That's the specialized system design that allows us to do that. Now with COVID, we've been relying on business platforms to conduct remote meetings. Well, we take that for granted. Well, not the air conditioning guys. The average people take it for granted, but the air conditioning guys are thinking about the computer rooms and the data storage facilities, all of that computer equipment that needs to be kept cool, that allows these systems to continue to run, that allows us to hold these virtual meetings. Well, Cathy, right now, there are tens of millions of people who are unemployed. And a lot of these people were in low-skill jobs, and now they're looking, going, wow, you know what? I need to get retrained. I need to learn a trade. I need to find a career where if there's an economic downturn or if there are other crises that take place, I want my job to be safe or safer than it was now. So many people are choosing to enter and study HVAC because, as you alluded to, HVAC service people have been deemed essential for the reasons that I just mentioned, from their needs from the food preservation chain, from the medical. Look at vaccines right now. The storage, the temperature requirements for storing vaccines and transporting vaccines. Well, who does that? Not the auto mechanic. It's the HVAC guy. So people are looking at HVAC more and more now as a viable career path to help them obtain jobs and careers that are going to be less susceptible to layoffs than the jobs that they presently have. You know, this is a really, really great industry, and because it's hidden, it's behind walls and ceilings and in attics and floors. We need to get out there and we need to talk about the industry, how great it is. You know, forgetting about how much money people can make, we really do make a difference. We affect everybody's life daily, from their freezers at home to the transport, and we really need to get out there and tell people about our industry. Because if we don't go out and tell people about our industry, people aren't going to know about it. We have employers that are always looking for qualified, energetic people to enter the trade. This is a perfect opportunity for us to get out there and say, listen, you rely on all of these things. And the one thing that everything has in common, from your conference platform to your food chain to medical to vaccine transport, everything that all of these have in common is HVAC.